Item number 29, Acting Chief Executive Report on the Majestic Theatre. I'll move that the report be received. And can I have a seconder for that? Paul Lonsdale. So we can open this up for questions. Yanni?
Thank you. I was concerned to see that that we've been advised that the demolition is well underway. My understanding is it's only just started, very preliminary. So I also was expecting that we would have some legal advice back as to how we could possibly stop the demolition, but I note that's not on the report. Can I just ask the Acting Chief Executive if there's been any consideration given to Council taking an injunction or getting some sort of judicial review of the use of Sarah's powers to demolish this listed heritage building? And if not, how soon could we get that, given what's happening in terms of the start of the demolition?
No, staff haven't considered that. We got your question through this morning about legal advice on these options, and we'll get that to you, but it's not available right at the moment.
It was asked for last week. So when I saw the report didn't include it, I raised it again, but I did want it recorded that it was not just something that I put in last night. It was something that was expected from last week.
Was it?
Yeah.
When?
So.
What was it? Sorry.
I didn't.
What was?
My apologies. I didn't.
Why was it? I don't remember us asking for legal advice last week.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were asked. Well, the Acting Chief Executive and I were asked by Council to meet urgently with and
prepare a report around options for the Majestic Theatre in terms of opportunities to, including legal, to challenge. But I appreciate that you've had a very short time to look at this, and I do appreciate that you've met with CCDU. I just want to flag to my colleagues that I would be quite keen to move an amendment that we do look at some sort of injunction around halting the demolition to enable us to consider what else may be able to be done.
We can take. I mean, we can take advice internally over whether grounds exist, but the advice that we've received is that there are no grounds for judicial review. That is the advice that we've received.
Who's that advice come from?
Internally.
And I think your other point, we were advised, and we haven't been to look, but just yesterday, that the demolition is well underway, not just started. So
it's got a few white things wrapped around it. They've probably started some initial work, maybe asbestos removal, but it's not significantly started in any way. And the contract has been let, as we know. But yeah,
All right. Well, look, I mean, we can take some further advice on the matter, but you know, I just, I mean, we could meet with Warwick again. He has left that open to have a further conversation with him.
I think the concern I have is clearly Sarah and CCDU are not going to change their mind around the demolition. So I think we need to look at what options are available to prevent the demolition, and the only one would be an interim injunction while we go through that more detailed process.
Yeah, the thing is that to get an injunction, I mean, to get an injunction, you have to have some sort of ground for the reason for the court to intervene. Yeah.
This is just after what's been happening with traffic in town. I know things have calmed down now, but I wonder whether the issue of traffic flow has been looked at with regards to the blocking off and reducing the flow around that key Litchfield Street corner. My understanding is that that's actually quite a key area and would, if it was fully available, be quite effective in alleviating some of the jamming at either end of Litchfield.
Yep.
We have
Glenn?
some legal staff here. Could we please invite them to the front to tease out whether a threshold in terms of the grounds for such a course of action could be reached?
Well, I don't think that people that have just heard this
Okay.
sitting at a meeting can come and give us legal advice. So I'm happy that we take additional advice as to whether there are any grounds for the council to act.
Yep.
But I really can't go further than that because, one, we have no idea where we end up in terms of costs. If we're not successful, if we get an injunction and don't have grounds, then we're liable for the costs that the delay will impose on Sarah. So I want us to take proper legal advice before we decide. And if it is as Councillor Johansson suggested, that the demolition is not as far underway as Sarah have said, well then we've got time to take that to get that advice. But we can't act precipitously. We did, and actually maybe that is something that's missing from this report, and that is the advice that we received in order to raise the issues with him. But we'll have a discussion about that as well, because I don't want to put us in a position where we're releasing advice that we've received that would be technically covered by privilege. So I would want to take advice on that as well. But you have an amendment you'd like to move.
Thank you. I'd like to move that we request the Acting Chief Executive, in conjunction with the Mayor, to seek urgent legal advice and options for halting the demolition of the Majestic Theatre. I'm happy to add there, noting the concern at the use of the Section 38 powers to grant approval for the demolition. If that helps give a bit of a steer as to why there possibly would be a challenge.
And that's seconded by you, Ali? Yeah. Ali Jones.
That's great. I just think it should probably just refer to the Majestic in the resolution so that it's really clear when people read it.
Halt the demolition of the Majestic.
Theatre.
The Majestic Theatre. And on Sarah's reliance on Section 38 of the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Act. Eh? On whether there are grounds, yeah. Eh? Well, Sarah is the body. Take out the word and. No, not that one. The other one. Yep, that one. Reliance on section 30. So take out on the use of, that's right. And 2011 is the date of the Act. Great. All right, is there any discussion? Eh? There are grounds, yeah. Sorry. Instead of there's grounds, there are grounds. On whether there are grounds, yeah. Grounds, actually actually it's grounds for the council to seek to halt the demolition. Because we have to specifically know whether we have grounds, because standing is one of the issues. Seek to halt the demolition of the. Yep. All right, Yanni?
I just think it's really important that we look at what we can do in this regard. We have lost so many heritage buildings, and I think everyone accepts that some post-earthquake would have to come down. I don't think anyone imagined the widespread destruction of our heritage, not from the earthquake, but from other means that has happened in our central city. We've lost about 50% of our listed heritage buildings within the central city, and where either council or government own publicly listed heritage buildings, I think we do have a responsibility to look very carefully at how we can save those. I note in the letter, and I appreciate and really applaud the Mayor for her letter expressing the views of council in regards to opposition to the demolition. Again, it just seems really hard for us as a council to engage with Sarah over some of these major decisions that are being made. And I think using the Section 38 for a non-dangerous building is something that we should investigate, because it just seems like the Section 38s are being used to get around the public processes that would exist in a democratic society and in a democratic country like New Zealand for the community to be involved in these significant decisions to destroy our listed heritage. And so really I think, you know, enough is enough. We've been incredibly patient trying to work with Sarah, CCDU and government over heritage recovery. We're seeing more and more buildings getting demolished. I think we have to make a stand and we have to challenge what's going on, but let's get the advice. I would have liked the advice today. I do think there's a risk. I mean, this is time critical that, you know, that the demolition will ramp up, knowing that we are looking at options. So I just implore that this be done quickly and that action can be taken if appropriate.
Cool, thanks. Look, Yanni's right. We have lost a huge amount of heritage buildings in our city, but it's actually because of that I'll probably be voting against this, because I think it's about picking your battles. Instead of pouring large sums of ratepayer money and tying up council resources in lost causes, I think we need to appreciate what we have got and concentrate on the battles that we've already won and put those resources into, I guess, cherishing things that we have got left, such as the Our City building, the provincial chambers. Sarah's been set up for a reason. Love them or hate them, they're there, and they have powers, and they are there to make certain calls. They've made a call around that. I'll be really honest with you. I think it's a stunning building. Actually, on the outside, I don't think it is an absolutely stunning building. I think inside it is a beautiful building. I think outside it's touch and go. But it's got wonderful stories around it. You know, the Beatles were there. I've been inside there, and I think it's a pretty glorious interior. In a perfect world, it would stay. But Sarah has made a call. We challenged that and said, hey, pause there. We want to have an intelligent conversation. What can be done? And I supported that. I supported having an intelligent conversation. And you got to stick it to them and stand up for what you believe is right every now and again too. And we did that. And they've come back and they've said, for what we've got laid out actually in front of us, that makes sense. I'm not saying that I necessarily like it, but they've come back and they have justified it. And they're there to make calls. And I think let them make their call. And I'll just finally reiterate, I'm not supporting this, not for any of the good points that have been raised, which are entirely true by the previous speaker. But the fact is, I don't want to tie up ratepayer money and staff resources into things that are lost causes. There are things that are not lost causes that I think we could get better outcomes for and make better use of that staff time and better use of our ratepayer money. So I'm effectively foreshadowing the amendment there with the staff recommendation, because I think that's prudent. This isn't an emotional call. This is a pragmatic one. So I'll be voting against the amendment.
Thank you. I wish to stand for this. I think my own take on this is that if we give the power away, whatever the realities we face in Christchurch as a city council over and against Sarah, we actually do, in the end, disempower ourselves, and I'm not prepared to do that in this case. The letter from Warwick Isaacs would indicate to me that there's a different nature, there's a different understanding of the progress of demolition, that in fact it's not as far as it has gone. It suggests to me there's a predetermined agenda there. He's saying that because it's already begun, whatever that means, that he's unable to step in and stop it. I don't accept that. We're dealing with far-reaching powers that now saying, well, I'm sorry, under those same powers I can't stop anything happening, and I don't buy that for a minute. We're talking about 9 metres of a building. We're just requesting reasonability, that the road could in fact be diverted around that building. This seems quite an arbitrary demolition. There's another fine piece of heritage further along, not much further along the street. I can't remember the name, but it's being preserved. I would also, thank you, I had it in my phone and couldn't find it, the Excelsior. At that intersection we see heritage and both future built form enhanced by the fact that two sit against each other, the new Lees building and another heritage building which Ross will also know the name of. So if we talk about the future of Christchurch, my argument is you actually need both. If you want to know what the future looks like and if you want to know what the past looks like, I would vigorously support us pursuing this to see whether in fact there are grounds for an injunction. I think it's important that we do this and that we actually don't just roll over. Thank you.
I'll put that... Sorry, we're going to have to adjourn the meeting and sit later this afternoon because there are other matters that need to be dealt with today. So I really had hoped that we would get the open part of the agenda resolved. So, Andrew?
I'll go really quickly in that case. I'll be supporting this amendment. As Councillor Johansson says, we have lost a lot of heritage buildings. It's become quite normal in the city to see buildings being demolished, and I think in many ways we've become desensitised to the demolition of some buildings that we would have been up in arms about the demolition of in a different situation. Referring to Councillor Goff's comment that we need to cherish things that we've got left, the reason for urgency around this legal advice, of course, is that this is a building that we do still have left at the moment. We do have an opportunity to do something about this, and now is the time to be doing it, to be sending a signal on behalf of the concerned ratepayers and residents of our city that we are concerned about this, and we do have an ability to perhaps do something about it. Let's find that out. Putting this into the context of the way a matter like this would be handled overseas, there are plenty of cities in Europe where the whole traffic network is determined by the location and position of heritage buildings. There's no reason why Christchurch should be any different. We've got some great opportunities to redesign aspects of the city. I'm sure there's an opportunity to consider redesigning the traffic network around that which is capable of being saved, rather than just simply knocking buildings over to come up with an easier solution. So I'm very supportive of this today.
So I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment say aye. Those opposed say no. Would you like your opposition recorded? Jamie Goff, Ralph Manji, David East. So I declare the the amendment carried. I'll put the full motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Oh. Well, yeah. that's, so that's yeah, that was an amendment to that.
And this becomes a substantive.
You know, that the information be received and that we request. So that's so this was an amendment. Yep. Right. So can we go back to the building, earthquake-prone buildings amendment bill submission?